Well, Barry Jackson is the president of the Australian and International Pilots Association. He joins us now in our Sydney studio. Barry Jackson, I know you too sat through a fair bit of that Fair Work hearing, so many thanks for joining us tonight.
My pleasure.
How confident are you of getting a resolution within the next 3 weeks and not being forced to binding arbitration?
Well, we have no choice really. 21 days and mutual agreement another 21 days, and by then we will have a decision made on behalf of us. So it's imperative on the negotiators, which are working, they were working this evening and start tomorrow. The clock is ticking. I'm pretty confident that we'll get an agreement. The thing is, it's speeded up the process, I guess.
So in some ways, has it actually achieved exactly what Qantas wanted? I mean, what they wanted was pressure to put a time frame on it.
Oh, for sure, and that was deliberate. And unfortunately, as far as the pilots are concerned, we were taking very low-range industrial action, wearing red ties and making positive PAs was all we were doing. Yet we were caught up in this the cancellation of our agreement. So therefore, we were caught up in this, and to me, it was again. I have to remind people, it wasn't the pilots that grounded the airline; it was the CEO that disrupted these passengers.
And the CEO saying that he was acting on the fact that industrial relation and the threat industrial action and the threat of industrial action, which was driving people away from the airline. Are you somewhat peeved with your other union colleagues who perhaps weren't as cautious in what they said and how they behaved, because it was that threat of one union even warning people not to fly Qantas between now and Christmas? Oh,
look, all the other unions have their own campaign. Throughout industrial relations, different unions will make an agreement at different times. So therefore, to say that it tied ourselves up with it, probably not the right thing. However, I think given that the Fair Work Act is fairly new, this sort of attitude from the company is new, and we're exploring boundaries of the Fair Work Act. And so I guess whether because we were thrown in to Fair Work Australia together, it seemed coincidence that we're all given the same outcome.
Well, if your optimism is not well founded, and if it does end up at a binding arbitration, are you confident that all the issues on the table for the pilots can actually be arbitrated on? As we heard earlier, there is some suggestion that the ability to arbitrate is limited. So, for example, issues like having Qantas pilots on Qantas flights, only Qantas pilots. Are you confident that that could be part of any sort of binding judgment?
Well, again, it's uncertain. I would suggest that the conciliation that starts tomorrow will be addressing those areas that we've got concerns about. But it's a risk for both sides. I mean, we don't know what the full bench is going to rule on the day, and whether or not that those job security issues that we're concerned about will be addressed in that deliberation at the end of the 21 days, or 42, depending on how long this goes for.
On that job security issue, on that Qantas pilots for Qantas flights, how much will that cost Qantas?
Well, if they accept the efficiencies that we're willing to give to make the airline more efficient, it's not about our current conditions. We're willing to negotiate. We always have been. It's not about money. Then it really wouldn't cost much at all, particularly with pilot costs between 2 and 4%. It is not a big area of cost.
But does a Qantas pilot earn a lot more to fly the same aircraft than a Jetstar pilot?
Not necessarily. I mean, it's apples and pears, I guess, because Jetstar doesn't run A380s. On the A330, it's similar.
Similar wage rates?
Similar wage rates, and in fact, some Jetstar pilots are earning more than Qantas pilots at the moment because they're working harder. So it depends on how much work is done. The frustration for our Qantas pilots is they see growth and also basically services that they used to do being taken over by Jetstar and Jet Connect and other ancillaries. So that's why we're addressing that right now, because they see their future promotion disappearing. So we wanted to address that. That's why we've taken the stand that we've taken.
But Qantas would argue that it simply can't afford it, and it's already got an international division that's losing $200 million a year. How viable is any sort of business with those sorts of losses?
Well, when you don't invest in a business, it's not going to make money. Alan, I know, will argue that the A380 is an investment, but I think if it's not making its return, it seems like there's a pattern here. They'll go and start another airline, and an airline in Asia that Red Q, which is minority ownership. Again, Qantas don't control that new entity, or any of the entities for that matter that are overseas, apart from Jet Connect. So it is a risky move. It will take a time to get profitability. We're arguing that Australian jobs are fastly disappearing, and he may say we'll keep those jobs, but we won't see the growth. At the moment, there is no guarantee that there will be an Australian pilot employed ever again. That's our concern, certainly our concern for our younger pilot members. We'd like to see that area addressed, because it is a concern. Even though we might come up with a solution, I think those sort of issues are still going to be outstanding.
So what's the difference between Qantas and Virgin? Because one of the points that Alan Joyce made in his speech on Saturday when he was announcing the grounding of the fleet, he said that Virgin Australia, quote, pays less and does its heavy maintenance offshore, but there's no union pressure on Virgin.
Well, I would suggest that the CEO of Virgin is engaged with his staff, and I'd contend that Alan needs to look at his staff as part of the solution, not part of the problem. Qantas pilots are very dedicated and very loyal. They, as some of my younger members have said, they want to be Qantas pilots. They want to see Qantas successful. We are a fairly engaged part of the workforce, and I think if we're willing to do what needs to be done.
Are you saying it's not just about pay? Are you saying it's actually about how you treat it or how you talk to? It's not all the dollars?
Well, as I say, I mean, you know, if you engage your staff, I think you'll find that you'll start to get the benefits of an engaged workforce. Qantas has always been innovative, but that innovation comes from staff being engaged in the business, and if they're not, then that innovation won't be forthcoming.
The TWU National Secretary Tony Sheldon says that his union is looking at a possible legal challenge to this ban on industrial action. What about the Pilots Association? We're
still considering our options. After all, that decision was made early in the morning this morning. Our legal team had to sleep in. We have discussed that, and there is an application to the Federal Court that is a possibility. We're exploring that. We'll explore all avenues.
But what would that application be for? What could be potential grounds?
Well, there may be, again, we're in new ground here, the contention that the pilots weren't damaging the business in our industrial action. Again, I mean, I say again that Alan Joyce grounded the airline. I mean, and we didn't. We continued to operate because we believed that we wanted to keep the loyal passengers on side. We wanted to encourage them to fly Qantas and make Qantas successful. But as far as that sort of issue, well, I guess the application would be on the grounds that it wasn't warranted.
And would you be seeking to be removed from the process?
Again, it's early days. We don't know. We'd like to think that we'd come to a negotiated solution. As always, we've asked and certainly been in the position that we wanted to negotiate.
But you're going to have to make a decision on this court action pretty quickly.
Oh, for sure.
So, what, in the next 24 hours there'll be a decision?
I would suggest that I'll let the lawyers look at it over the next day or two, and hopefully, as I say, we'll come to a negotiated solution. The negotiations, I'll remind everyone, is the art of compromise. Again, we don't see much compromise from the company, so again, we'd like to see that hopefully that will change in the near future.
Barry Jackson, many thanks for talking to Leyline tonight.
My pleasure.